10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. We're heading into round 8 now of the NRL Dream Team season, and you're with Bankise and Jay for yet another week of torture to your ears. Banksy, welcome back, mate. It's good to see you here, and mate, you had a pretty rubbish week, just like everybody else by the sounds of it.
It wasn't that bad. I only missed on 80 points.
You missed out on that. Coulda, shoulda, wouldas, mate. Coulda, shoulda, wouldas.
Oh, whoop-de-doo. That team's still pretty strong for the buys.
Yeah, it is, mate, it is. Look, what we'll do today, we'll go through these team lists. There's a few injuries to chat about, and there's a couple of players that people are looking at that they're sort of wondering, is it time to get off? Is it time to trade them? And there's a couple of players they're looking at bringing in as cash-out options, a couple of rookies, particularly at the Tigers. So we'll have a look at those and have a quick chat about them. Should we jump straight into team list, mate? You ready to go?
I believe I'm ready to go.
Beautiful. Broncos Rabbitohs Friday night, mate. What are the key changes, if any, that we see here?
There's no key changes whatsoever. The Broncos are 1-17 as last week. The Rabbitohs are again 1-19 as named last week. No changes.
Excellent. Well, look, the player that I've seen started to be mentioned around the forums and that sort of thing is number 17 for the Rabbitohs, Gorgeous George Burgess. A lot of people are wondering, is it time to jump off him? He's capped out at 314,600 this week. He's got a break even now of 47. Based on sort of previous form, he's either going to score 60 or he's going to score 35. Is it time to trade up from Gorgeous George?
Who are you trading up to? That is the question. Who else do you have in your team? George Burgess plays by big buy 1, big buy 2, he plays 12 and 15. Unless you're getting way too many South players in your team, you do not trade him out just yet. Even though he's peaked in price, his scores still warrant that you keep him in the team. He might drop down to 270, 280, but one big game he's back up to 320 again.
Yeah, look, that's a fair call. And one thing that I'm struggling with this week, particularly I brought in some stronger players in that second row forward position, is I can't not pick him in my 17. As much as I know I might have to cop with a 28 or a 30, if he scores a 65 again and I don't have him in my 17, particularly playing against the Broncos who have been pretty weak up the middle and with their goal line defence against big forwards, I think I'll upcut myself. I just couldn't deal with it.
I doubt anybody who has him won't be playing him in their 17 somewhere. He's almost one of those guaranteed, put your reserve on him and you're going to get a good 35, 50 point return on him.
Yeah, and you might get a 60 point if you get lucky with him. And look, there's every chance he's going to get lucky against the Broncos who, as I said before, they just haven't been the strongest defensive team as yet this season, not compared to the Broncos teams of old that I guess we all still have that expectation of.
That is correct. Just run at Prince all day. The ex-Titan player, he'll get torn apart.
I know you threw that ex-Titan player bit in there just to have a dig at me, mate, but he's definitely all Broncos now, so I've got no problem with you running at Prince all day, mate.
Neither do I.
We've got no...
Wrong with Sam Burgess. Wrong with Sam Burgess, not George.
Make it Georgie, mate. Make it Georgie. Alrighty, let's move on. Bulldogs, West Tigers. Now, obviously, the big talk in regards to the Bulldogs is James Graham is back after his 12-week suspension for pulling a Mike Tyson on Billy Slater's ear. Mate, what do you reckon for James Graham? He's coming off the bench, but correct me if I'm wrong, he came off the bench all last year, or for the most part last year, didn't he?
He came off the bench and he came on about 20 minutes in and played the rest of the game. That's how he operates.
That's exactly what I thought was the case. And, don't let him being named on the bench sort of deter you from picking him up if you're looking at picking him up. If you are looking at trading out Gorgeous George, then James Graham may be the option for you. He is a little bit more. Now, I guess, look, we've got 2 games to look at Graham before we have to trade him in if he's going well, or to sit and wait till he sort of finds his feet again if he's not going so crash hot. What's your pick, mate? Is he going to go well straight off the bat, or waiting those 2 or 3 games going to be gold?
I think he's going to have a settling back in period. It's going to be like where he started last year. He started off a little bit weak, but he started to pick up steam throughout the year. And there is a reason why he's priced at 361k for. He's a very good scorer once he gets going. So hopefully he starts off a little bit weak and starts to come right just about round 10, round 11. That sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does look, and round 10, 11 is when I'm going to be looking at him, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that he is going to be a bit slow out of the blocks, and we're going to see a bit of a price drop to the point where he may actually be a very viable direct trade for Gorgeous George. He will probably drop somewhere between 30 and 50,000 because a starting price of 361k is a big ask. You know, he's got to pump out a high 30s, low 40s average to maintain.
It's a 44 average, I believe.
44 average, there you go. Well, just give me 2 shakes, and what I'll do is I'll have a quick look at what his break-even is for you so that we know,
44.
Oh, there you go. Jesus, Banksy, you're all over it tonight, mate.
I know I am.
All right, so he's got a
Also,
score
he has a very...
off the bat.
Also, he loves playing with Tigers. He does. He played them twice last year, got a 52 and a 65.
So some big scores, but do you think we're going to see a big score like that from him, you know, straight out of the blocks, even against the Tigers?
The only way we'll see a big score like a 60 from him in the first game is if he scores a try.
Okay, fair enough. Now, just on that note, look, the Tigers have copped an absolute pounding. It was carnage last week in their game. You know, there were some pretty huge injuries. Bodine Thompson's obviously moved to centre to cover for Chris Lawrence, who I believe had a lower leg break. Is that correct?
I believe he's got hamstring issues.
Lawrence's hamstring.
I think Ashford's got the lower leg break.
There we go. It was Blake
I think he's
Ashford.
got the ankle.
Yep, you're right. Blake Ashford with the lower leg break. You know, the only other side last week to cop the kind of injuries that the Tigers did throughout the match with the Titans, and they copped them all in the first 15 minutes. But, you know, we've got Tim Moulton out with an ACL. So he's done for the season, which, look, it's terrible any time a player gets injured. You never want to see anybody get injured. You'd rather see them drop for form, but I can only see the season-ending injury as actually a benefit to the Tigers based on how Moulton affects that team on the field and the things that he doesn't do on the field.
Yeah, that is correct. I think Tedesco will be a better fullback for them in the longer term. He's a very young player. He showed a lot of promise last year before he got injured, and he's shown a lot of promise this year so far. So hopefully he does get that. We will get that run, I believe, and we'll see Ashford and Lawrence back into the centres over the next few weeks when they come back from their injuries and push Thompson back out into that second row lock position where Sean Spence is named to start this week. And Saosa Sui, I believe is how you say that Samoan name, I'm guessing, is also there too.
Mate, I don't know if we've got the right mix for doing this NRL podcast. I mean, you know, you look at some of the names here and you've got 2 of the whitest blokes in history trying to pronounce them. I think we might need to go and get ourselves an Islander co-host or something like that, mate, just to help us out. What do you reckon?
That could be we might have to go onto a Marai and learn how to pronounce these words correctly and not disrespect these players' names.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Look, moving on, we've got Jacob Miller in the 7 for the Tigers. Now that's going to be a bit of a sigh of relief for those who have sort of been stuck with Jacob Miller after his dire start to the season and then disappearing after 4 games. Curtis Sirenen in the 6, which, you know, obviously Benji Marshall's going to come back to that 6. They're talking round 9 now instead of round 10. Without the presence of Benji Marshall there, and the flack that Miller's copped for his lack of involvement in the game and being sent back to New South Wales Cup to sort of pick up on you know, his involvement and what he does on field, are we going to see some better scores from Miller this week?
I hope we do. I hope that Barra does not hog the goddamn ball like he did last 20 minutes of that Tigers game against the Broncos. He just hogged the ball, and his 2 best kicks were his 2 worst kicks of the night. He just got very lucky with them.
Thanks, mate. I've just got to interrupt you there for a community service announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, Nathan Banks does not have Robbie Farah in his Dream Team side, which is why you may be picking up on a little bit of the venom and jealousy coming out in his voice. So just ignore any bitching that he does about Robbie Farah. You know, he's going to whinge and bitch and moan because he clearly can't afford Farah now. He's missed the boat and he's bitter about it.
I'm not bitter. I'm just concerned for people that do have him, that he's fluking his points. And he will skyrocket down in price, and I'll pick him up cheap as chips, and I'll laugh at your face.
Look, there was something I said to you a little bit earlier on, and look, I'm not going to argue with you on this because it's incredibly dangerous to dispel somebody's delusion, particularly when they're in a mentally unbalanced state, as you clearly are. So how about we move on to the Storm versus Raiders?
We should do.
Actually, no, we can't. I just realised we've got to go back and have a look at Jack Buchanan. Can you give me the clarity of thought and you know, lose the dementia for a moment so that we can have a chat about Jack Buchanan in you know, real life terms?
Of course we can.
Excellent. Mate, a lot of people are wondering if Jack Buchanan's maxed out and is it time to jump off Jack Buchanan or Buckingham as the great Gareth Lasky likes to call him. What are your thoughts, mate?
My thoughts is no, he has not maxed out yet. He's a break-even of 15 this week. He always scores at least 25 to 30 points, and he pumps out 40 points on occasion too.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm holding on to him for another few more weeks just to get that strain, that little bit extra money on, and just to see what guys like Graham and Maguire and some other roughies are doing for the buys in front row forward position.
Yeah, look,
if you're on him,
it's definitely time. If you're on him, stay on him.
Depending on what your team's looking like, you can maybe get off him this week. If you have a strong team for the buys already, maybe the cash out option of Buchanan is there.
Yeah, fair enough. Actually, I didn't think of that one. Fair enough. And would you be cashing out to Suaso Sui or Sean Spence at this point in time?
If I had to choose between Spence and Sui, I would definitely go Sui because I believe Sui has a very, very low break-even of minus 30. Yep. So even if you get one or two more games out of him, he will probably make another 50, 60k for you. And that could be very vital coming into the season.
That's exactly it. And I mean, Sean Spence, his first sort of start was, he only scored 11. He scored okay last week. I think it was about 28. And that makes his break-even minus 11. So if you're looking for the maximum cash as fast as possible, it looks like Sui's going to be your option this week.
I'm going to dispel you. Spencer's break-even is minus 2, by the way.
Ah, there you go. Look at that. Banksy's on it, and Jay's obviously been drinking the hooch. Looking at West Tigers, Tim Simona, you mentioned to me in just before the show that you wanted to have a quick chat about him. Obviously, yeah. You've got a bit of info.
He has played a few games before for the Tigers. Like he's filled in the last couple of games of the season here and there. The last couple of seasons, I believe. So he could move into the centres for Bodine Thompson, pushing Thompson to the second row or to the bench even, and playing in the second row lock position where he can and should be playing.
Yeah,
but keep a closer eye to team lists.
Yeah, definitely keep close eye on team lists. I would much rather see Bodine Thompson playing in that 13 spot than Sean Spence. But having said that, you know, I do own Bodine Thompson, and I know, having had Bodine Thompson at some point, I think in at least 2 of the last 3 years of DT, I know he scores terribly in the centres. You know, you're talking maybe a 20-point average if he's having a good season. Whereas in that lock position, you can expect the sort of 30-point scores, and that's, you know, really the ideal kind of scenario. Obviously, last week his score was an aberration because he had to move into the centres.
That definitely is a fact, and it's something, if you have got him, you keep him. If you haven't got him and you can do other stuff, do the other stuff. He's not a must-have. His buys, missing 12 and 18, don't help him either.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. He misses 12 and 18, so he bookends the big buys. You know, he starts at 127k. We're not going to see big price rises from him early just because of, you know, his scoring last week was down. And, you know, what's happening in the Tigers pack is he's a player who can play centres as well as second row. So he's probably going to get moved into the centres until Ashford's back or they find a suitable replacement.
That's definitely the thing.
All
Right,
right,
it's time to
moving.
move on.
Absolutely. Storm versus Raiders, my friend. Tohu Harris starting in the lock position again, which is good for everybody. And Kenneth Bromwich named as 18th man. Do you reckon he's going to get a run?
Going from last week, no, you won't.
Okay.
I
And
believe they'll run Griffin again.
yeah, look, and Griffin's been doing well enough for them off the bench as well. Lagi Setu named as 17th man as well, which is not a bad selection, and I believe he's fairly cheap. Is that right?
I'm just doing the quick calculations on him right now. He's 163k. He's averaging 18.7.
Yeah, so he's not really worth picking up unless you're just looking for something to grab. Now, the interesting thing is Tohu Harris starting at lock. From our pre-chat, Banksy, you sort of feel he's going to be there at least until the bye rounds, just with Hinchcliffe being out for as long as he is, and how are they going to bring Hinchcliffe back, do you think?
I think they'll bring Hinchcliffe back at that lock spot, at least to start with, depending when he's back. So they might bring Hinchcliffe back round 11, so Harris might have one game back off the bench. Oh, yeah, all right, you take that hit, but looking at that New South Wales team, you almost got to think Ryan Hoffman's a shoo-in for that New South Wales team, and you know Smith's out, you know that Slater's out, you know that Cronk's going to be out, so you know that Hinchcliffe's going to move into the hooker position for Smith, opening up another back row spot, and Hoffman's gone to another back row spot. Harris becomes the second choice behind Proctor. He's going to see big time over the bye period, helping those Origin players nurse themselves through that period with a lower work rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I agree with you there, and I guess the main question is, and I'll pose this to you because look, I'm still torn. I've got a number of different players that I can pick this week. To complete my 17 as my 4 reserves. Obviously, Robbie Farah picks himself. So if you were to pick three
I thought
players...
Smith would pick himself.
Oh, look, Smith's there. Look, I'm tossing up between Smith and Farah for captain. It's always hard to take the captaincy off Smith. But,
Did last week.
Yeah, no, I didn't last week. I kept it with Smith. But
I thought I convinced you.
No, you didn't convince me in the end, mate. You didn't convince me. I left it on him. But I've got to select 3 from George Burgess, Jack Buchanan, Tohu Harris, Tarek Sims, Mark Minicello. Mate, who would you pick as your 3 from those?
Harris, Minicello, and Burgess.
So you wouldn't pick Tarek Sims?
No, I wouldn't, but it will be a toss-up between Sims and Burgess, though.
Fair enough. I'll take that under advisement. I'll let you know what I do sort of towards the end of it. Right now I'm sitting with Burgess, Sims and Minicello, so Buchanan and Harris missing out. But, I mean, one of the arguments for Harris is that he's just so consistent, isn't he?
He is. He's going to keep pumping up 40 points. You know you're going to get 40 points from him a week.
Yeah, and being in that lock position, he's defending up the middle, which is, that's where you want a player to be defending.
Well, he's going to be defending against the big, tall timber of the Raiders, against the likes of Paul Vaughan, Dane Tills, Tom Leroy, Lars, Brett White. Those big, tall timbers.
That's exactly right. And I mean, look, the Raiders have been more of an up-the-middle side this year than in previous years, only sort of swinging it wide on the 4th and 5th plays. Is that going to change with Terry Campese named at 6?
Well, what I saw from the Raiders game on Saturday night, when Campese came on, he just loved popping the short ball to Joel Thompson, who was running back on the inside. He did that about 7-8 times he did in the game, so that's where Thompson got all his points from, just running back inside all the time. I don't know if he's going to work with that with Dempson or Foster or Edwards, but he's going to definitely do it from the start, because that's all he was doing, especially till he was passing to his left all the time too. Okay,
interesting thing you noted there. That just on that, Thompson's missing from that starting or from
he's injured.
19. He's injured, so that's definitely no good for the Raiders because he was an absolute a shining example last week.
He was. He worked very hard. He always is a very hard worker.
Absence of Thompson going to have a positive effect on Fensom scores, you reckon?
It should do. It should see Fensom play 80.
Yeah, absolutely. And no Papali either.
Not yet. But that would affect Jake Foster and Joel Edwards at the end of the day. Those two will lose out.
Yeah. And interestingly, Anthony Milford named at 14, Paul Vaughan at 17, Jared Kennedy at 18 and Sean Berrigan at 19. Now, you seem to think that Anthony Milford's facing a charge from the under-20s.
I believe he is. That's what I've been told. That's what I've read. So don't be surprised if Berrigan comes in as a late inclusion. Well, not late, because you'll know if Milford's playing or not on Wednesday night.
Yeah, yeah.
So at the moment, he's going to miss the game. But he's fighting the charge, I believe.
No,
Has
fair
to be
enough.
cleared of it.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Okay, so Sean Berrigan likely to move into the 14, or into the 17, I should say, to cover for Anthony Milford, which of course gives them a hooker rotation between Matt McKilrick and Sean Berrigan.
That is correct.
Moving on, let's have a look at this Eels versus Cowboys. Now, mate, the Eels, I reckon the Eels have borrowed the blender from Mick Potter down at the Tigers, because they've thrown all the names into the blender and just pulled out shreds of paper at whim.
Yeah, they've also been hit hard with some injuries and some poor form, so Stewart's stepping up and saying, you're not playing well enough, go away and bring up this younger guy that could play way better than you.
Well, that's a harsh way of putting it. I'm sure Stewart would be a little bit more politically correct than that, though not much. He probably
Stewart knows not.
That's bullshit. All right, so another failed joke by Jay, but anyway, moving right along and let's have.
That was the internet, wasn't it, and not self-censorship?
Oh yeah, no, that was me, self-censorship, mate. I didn't say the swear word there, but Appy Pifarangi. Appy Pifarangi. There we go. Look, I've been in Australia too long, mate. It's.
I think one of my mates got the same last surname.
Oh my God, I feel sorry.
But I don't know his first name.
Marries.
I don't know his first name. It's McCarty.
Can you imagine marrying into a family with a last name of Pifarangi or whatever?
I can't, because it would become Banks.
Yeah, well, I don't know, mate. I don't know. No, I'm not going to go there. I've already bagged you out enough about basements and mothers and things like that. So, Vitaltai on the wing, Fui Moi Moi in at 10. Obviously, Tim Manners out with some sort of ankle injury. Do we have any information on how long he's out for?
No, we don't. What I've read up and what I've seen, that he's out indefinitely. He's had scans today, MRI scans, I think. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard any results from it so far, so keep an eye for it. Well, as you listen to this, it would be already out by now. But as we're recording this, it'll be tomorrow.
Well, that's a fair call. Number 14, Kesa Pritchard, and number 16, Penny Tharipo.
He's a hooker.
So Kesa Pritchard's a hooker. So it looks like two hooker rotation with Matty Keating and Penny Tharipo in at 16. I'm assuming he's going to be second row. Is that right?
I believe he's actually a prop.
Oh, there you go. So into the prop rotation. Mate, I'm getting it all wrong tonight. It's a good thing that you're around, eh?
Yeah, I've actually done some research.
Research? What's that?
It's called Googling their names and hoping for the best.
Google, where would we be without that, mate? All right, looking at the Cowboys, Matty Bowen. Look, I got to say, Matty Bowen played a pretty good game last week. He scored 30-odd points. He sort of had a bit of the spark. 33 points. Had a bit of the spark that has been lacking in his game. Was definitely teaming up with Jonathan Thurston there. Look, I think he's bottomed out. His break evens definitely dropped down as well. It's sitting around the 23 mark. He is only projected to see, Jay gets one right. Oh yeah. He's only projected to score 24 points this week, but look, he's definitely sort of started to click again and come back to the Matty Bowen that we've loved. Coming into Origin too, he has some fantastic buys, and he always steps up when JT sort of goes off for Origin camp. So, is it the time to bring in Matty Bowen?
I think it could very well be. Looking at his stats, his tackles is pretty consistent, 3 a week apart from 5 against the Storm. He's a fullback, forget about that. His metres run have been down. He only runs about 50, 60 metres a game, which is very poor for a fullback. Yep. So he's not getting too many tackle busts either. That's the thing that's putting me off him. He's not running the ball. His kick metres are back up again, but he's still not running the ball. He's having his wingers do the work for him. And when Riff Miller played, he ran twice as much as Bowen did. So maybe that knee's still not right. Maybe it'll never be right.
Oh, maybe, maybe. I mean, I'm not as concerned about him as you. I sort of saw the results, and the thing is, if he's kicking, and he was definitely kicking last week, and kicking well, generally that means that the knee's pretty good because kicking puts a lot of pressure on the knees.
That is
Joel
true.
Rethmuller, you realise he was playing in at lock, right?
I mean, Green Shield's in okay.
Oh, Green Shields, righto. JPEG's one back. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. It's still 5-2 to me.
yeah. Oh, you're keeping score. That'll be about right. Rory cost Jason starting in the 9. Ray Thompson, of course, on the bench. 2 hooker rotation for the Cowboys there as well.
Screw
Ashton
cost
Sims.
Jason.
Sorry.
I said screw cost Jason. I just about jumped on him last week and decided against it.
Yeah, well, we were talking about it, weren't we? And I was actually all for it, but it looks like there's going to be a rookie hooker to pick up and jump on as of about next week in at the Titans. But we'll move on to him shortly, and we'll have a bit of a chat about him. Ashton Sims, 18th man. Jason Tuamalolo, 19th man for the Cowboys. Look, aside from what we've mentioned, Khalifa Lower in for Antonio Winterstein again, but of course watch team leads closer to the game. Anything else about the Cowboys you think sort of needs to be mentioned?
Why is Glenn Hill still playing for? Get Gavin Cooper starting, put Tamalana on the bench of Bolton and Rithmuller, and you have one of the best goddamn teams in the competition.
Look, I can't answer that. That's you'll have to direct all inquiries to Neil Henry on that one, mate. But one thing I just noticed, Dallas Johnson's back in the lock position, which could affect some of the big tacklers and definitely affect Joel Rethmiller's scores because, of course, he's been starting at lock. Johnson may or may not, end up taking the field, but we'll have to wait and see.
I think he will this week.
Yeah, I think so. It was only a concussion, and I mean, he wears one of those Buzz Lightyear space braces.
I still remember that Origin game. He got knocked out about 2 minutes into the game, went off, and came back in after half time and did about 50 tackles in the second half.
Yeah, it wasn't 2 minutes. It was the first tackle of the game.
Okay, it was 2 seconds in, but
Yeah,
it was just like he goes straight off.
Yeah, he dropped his head and copped just headbutted the thigh of I can't remember who it was, but yeah.
Probably probably one of the Canberra Raiders players that used to play for the New South Wales team.
Possibly, but I just remember it flooring him. That was back in the days when rugby league was a lot less like touch football. But anyway, we won't touch on that, otherwise we'll be here all night, and you've got a soapbox to get on shortly.
Yeah.
Warriors Titans, Jerome Rapati, he survived the game. Round of applause. Well done, Jerome. This guy is more glass than Kurt Gidley. In fact, he's more glass than Kurt Gidley and all of Kurt Gidley's ancestors put together. Will he survive? Will he survive this game against the Titans on the 5th of May at Mount Smart?
He might struggle to even make the field. He might make the field in a walking frame.
So, all right, Banksy's calling it he's going to get injured at training and he'll be in a walking frame before the game. I'm calling it first half injury. I'll just, I'll take the safer bet there.
All right.
Now,
so anybody wants to get on that they actually last this game out and he throws a party like no row party can?
I'm not going to touch that one. Ben Henry in at number 4. 18-man bench, obviously, Lumape. Go for it, Banksy.
Lumape.
There we go. He's named 18th man, obviously, to cover for either Rapati or Ben Henry. No Conrad Hirrell. Is he injured, Banksy? Do you know? Or is it
no,
just
he's not.
Matty Elliott went, you dropped the ball too many times, so I'm going to drop you?
No, I believe he's dropped them for his own personal growth. I believe that's what I've been told.
What, did he drop him with a subscription to Playboy or something?
I don't know.
That's about the only way. It's about the only way I can see Hirrell getting own personal growth out of being dropped.
I think he's been told to go back to New South Wales and work on his defence. Well, that's what I would tell him.
Hey,
that's what I would tell him.
Banksy, hang on. Why are they sending him to New South Wales? They've lost 7 Origin series in a row. Clearly the defence isn't working. They should send him to Queensland and teach him how to catch a ball and tackle.
I mean, he's going to play for the Vulcans in the New South Wales Cup.
I don't know, mate. Every time I call you out, you just change the story to suit yourself.
And by the way, he probably can play for New South Wales or Queensland if he wants to.
Well, yeah, because Auckland, that's in New South Wales.
No. That's Palmerston North.
Oh, right. Palmerston North, well, that's in New South Wales too. Moving on to the Titans. Kevin Gordon back for the Titans. Brad Takarangi also back. Both of them are coming back from hamstring strains, so we know how fickle they can be, and the Titans have taken a policy of, if they're not 100%, they'll pull them from the game. Steve Michaels is named at 18th man to cover both Gordon and Takarangi, so keep an eye on team list closer to the game. Not that too many people will have either Gordon or Takarangi anyway. Aiden Caesar got through last week's game all good, which I can't say for Ashley Harrison, Matt Schramer, and Luke Chalky O'Dwyer. O'Dwyer out with a broken jaw. Matt Schramer, if you haven't seen the picture, basically dislocated the top of his ring finger. Dislocated it so bad that he got bone coming out through the skin. It's rather a pretty picture, and it's certainly been doing it the rounds on social media.
Can I describe it, please?
Well, look,
I have a perfect description.
yeah, absolutely. You can describe it in a second, but I just want to point out, as you're listening to this description, I got MMS this picture while I was eating dinner. So go ahead, Banksy.
All right, so you got your ring finger, and you put the tip of your ring finger towards your middle finger, and then you grab a tooth from your mouth and you jam it in that first socket. That's basically what it looks like.
Yeah, that's charming. So anyway, everyone's going to be really happy that Mark Minicello's starting at 12 again. Dave Taylor off the bench. Mark Ione makes his debut for the Titans. He's come from the Raiders and before that the Warriors. Ryan James named at 16. Look, he's definitely in line to get some minutes, I think, as a result of the other injuries around the place. And Sam Irwin rounds out the 17. Now, Sam Irwin is nicknamed around the place, around the club, as Mighty Mouse. He is a little hooker. I think he's actually a touch shorter than Nathan Friend, so it puts him in the sort of same category as Preston Campbell. But, geez, he's strong. Debuted against the Parramatta Eels. Was very, very quick out of dummy half. He really took them on and took on the Parramatta big guys one-on-one in tackles and came out the winner. So keep an eye on him. He's 101k. You've got another week before you need to jump on him because this is only his second game. But if you are looking to trade out Scott Moore or another hooker who's failed, or, maybe you're considering doing a big trade like Smith out, over the origin period for another hooker or something like that, Sam Irwin, look, he's not going to play a lot of games, but he's going to get 4 or 5 games in, would be my estimation. Matty Schramer's out with that finger. They reckon he's back in 2 to 3 weeks, but I reckon they're going to be saying 2 to 3 weeks for the next 5. I honestly think it's got to be 6 to 8 weeks. Seeing the picture and looking at the damage that was done, there's no way you'd be back in 2 to 3 weeks after that, Banksy, even as a full-blown professional athlete. I mean, do you disagree, or...?
I don't disagree one little bit. He will struggle to be back in 3-4 weeks. So we'll definitely be hopefully seeing Irwin sticking around for round 12 if you do jump on him.
Yeah, look, I'm in absolute agreement there. And to be honest with you, Banksy, and I know I'm about to speak out of turn, I'm about to blaspheme here, but I'm thinking of going Smith to Irwin just to get some cash out of him so that I can then upgrade, somebody like... a shitload of cash.
420,000.
Yeah, 420 grand. So I'll use that cash to bring in a couple of gun halves for currently. I think I've still got Humble and Miller in the halves.
You do?
Yeah, well, I couldn't trade out Humble this week. I had to go elsewhere. But bring in a couple of gun halves and maybe beef up in other areas until after Origin, when of course I'll look at bringing Smith back. I know that's flying in the face of years of DT knowledge and all the rest of it, but it's definitely a tempting trade at the moment, particularly knowing that Sam Irwin's going to pump out, it looks at the moment like he's going to pump out somewhere between 30 and 40 points a match.
I think that's a little bit on the high side. I think he'd be more of a 20-25 point player.
Fair enough. And look, if he is that, then I'll definitely rethink. If he's between 30 and 40, then I think it's worth doing, but this game will sort of give us a pretty good indication. Obviously, when he debuted, a lot of adrenaline flowing, and he got through a lot of work. But I guess we'll just wait and see, eh?
Just a quick note, he's on his debut, he got 20 tackles, he had no minuses, he had a try assist and a line break assist, so there's 9 points.
Yeah.
And the others were sort of general hooker stuff, so you're going to be looking at like a 20 to 25 point player there.
Yeah, fair enough. Well,
Just going off the stats line.
Yeah, no, look, fair enough. I'm not going to sort of debate it. I don't have enough information really to get into a full-blown debate with you yet. I want to see a second and maybe a third game out of him. But nonetheless, even if he's pumping out that 20 to 30 points, there's definite cash raises in there, and he looks like a viable option to get rid of Scott Moore for.
He is for me, at least.
Yeah, geez, those fleas have been biting you for a while, haven't they?
I know, my cheap hooker's coming around the corner.
Telling you, man. Telling you. Anyway, moving on to the Knights versus Sharks before we get into a discussion about blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the blackjack. Knights, no real changes there. Neville Costigan in at 15. Corbin Sims named 18th man. Look, are we going to see Costigan take the field, or we reckon Bennett's going to do a late-minute shift and have Corbin Sims take the field like he did against the Titans?
I think Costigan, Neville missed a game because he was injured.
Is he still injured? Have we heard anything?
I'm not too sure. I think it was just a Louis niggle that he didn't want to risk.
Yeah.
So he played Sims.
Fair enough. And look, he doesn't have to play until Sunday, so there's plenty of time for him to come right.
Definitely. And they're only paying the Sharks anyway. They're going to lose.
Oh, Banksy, your confidence is phenomenal. And Lou, look, moving on to the Sharks, no real changes there, is there? Or
Nothing yet. Still the 18-man team named last week. Expect Heinten to start over Graham once again.
Yep. And Sam, take it easy. We're going to see him come into the 17.
Hell no. I want to see. Before Takatizi comes back into the team, I want to see Tyrone Peachey get given a chance.
Yeah, full agreement with you there, mate. Tyrone Peachey, and look, he's the is it the son or the nephew or something of David
I believe his
Peachey?
nephew or a cousin of David. Yeah.
Yeah, look, and
he's a really gun lock.
He was. David Peachey was one of the Sharks' best fullbacks of all time, and yeah, a lot of love for that man, Peachey. So anyway, moving on then. Roosters, look, they haven't changed a winning formula, and why would you? Having said that, you're starting to see a side that is really hitting its straps, and my God, it's getting scary. I didn't think they'd do this well this year. The
thing is, they keep playing the same players over and over again. They've been lucky with injuries so far.
Yes, they have.
Imagine a few injuries hit them. They don't have much depth with experience, especially at the Roosters, who have a very young talent pool to call upon.
Look, that's a fair call, but then again, they're calling young talent. And look at like Daniel Tupu and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and the way that those guys have sort of grown in stature, playing outside of Michael Jennings and Sean Kenny-Dow with Anthony Minicello at the back, and being around James Maloney and Sonny Bill Williams and Mitchell Pearce and Waria Hargraves. Like, I mean, there's that much experience there that even if, God forbid, Sonny Bill went down or, Sean Kenny-Dow went down, the young blokes that they're going to be bringing in, I mean, I reckon those young blokes will step up and do well just because of the players that are around them.
That is true, but it's just something just to keep in mind of in tipping terms later in the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, they're going up against the Panthers, who are fresh off a win against the Eels. The Eels looked positively second rate. It was a huge win. And our thoughts go out to Gareth Lafsky, who come hell or high water as a Panthers fan, and we love that passion, when you're following your side. But do the Panthers even stand a chance of going close to the Roosters? I know they held it with the Rabbitohs for, a decent period of time, but, I mean, the Rabbitohs were basically asleep for half of that match.
I'll go back to say what I've said elsewhere last week. Is this the New South Wales Cup side for the Panthers? Because you look at the team, Molan, Robertson, Brown in the centres, Farre, well, he's an international rep centre, Simmons, Humble, Walsh, like that back seven screams New South Wales Cup.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. And then you look at their bench, and you're talking Adam Docker, Mose Masso, then the only really
Mossy Maseo, by the way.
Mossy Maseo, thank you, Banksy.
Actually, up against his old club too.
Up against his old club. James Seguiaro and Clint Newton are really the only sort of established players on that bench.
There's also, I believe there's also talk of, what you would call it, Anthony Cherrigan maybe get a sneaky start too.
Ooh, now there's
So
one
keep
to
an
look
eye
at.
out.
Yeah, that'd definitely be one to look at. But I got to say, you know what? If there is going to be an upset this round, it could be the Panthers over the Roosters.
No, it's the Sharks against the Knights.
Yeah, no, not happening. Panthers over the Roosters,
No,
and they're
true.
also
It's
going to be
always
about
going to be the Sharks anyway.
$6. Oh, look,
True.
Banksy, mate.
So look, you say Panthers?
Panthers, they could be at $6. I mean, it's only Tuesday night that we're recording this, so closer to the game, I think you might find them Panthers get out to about $6.
True.
What are we doing?
And
we spend that much time.
Also,
Yep.
Also, it's a Channel 9 game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Sunday, 3 o'clock. That's the Channel 9
So you
game.
see your good mate, Tom Waterhouse.
Well, I was about to say, we rip on Tom Waterhouse for all his sleazy dealings and all the rest of it, and here we are talking about odds. We'll move right on.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah, go on.
On Tom Waterhouse?
Yep.
I actually don't... in New Zealand, we are blessed not to have ads during our Channel 9 coverage games. We are blessed not to see his face every 5 minutes. My mate went over to Aussie last week, and he said, "F***ing hell, he's a goddamn get him off the TV. He's always doing some shady."
And
he watched one game and he hates him already.
I'm going to cut out what you just said when it comes to editing. Not only did you drop multiple F-bombs, but there's a C-bomb in there as well. And that's where we've got to draw the line. While it's completely and utterly viable and perfectly accurate when talking about Tom Waterhouse, unfortunately, we just can't let that record stand. So I'm not sure if I'm going to beep you or if I'm going to cut it or what the go is there. But I think beeping will be more appropriate. But
beeping will be more funny because I think that Tom Waterhouse is the best and he should come sponsor our show.
Yeah, I think I'd quit if that happened. Not that I'm getting paid for it. Well, actually, if he started paying me, no, I'd still think he was a sleazy, slimy bastard. Let's move on. Dragons versus Sea Eagles. And by the way, the whole reason you guys don't have ads during your Channel 9 coverage over there in New Zealand, mate, there's so many bad things about that country.
You have to pay for it.
We've just got to give you one good thing, mate.
You have to pay for the
that's
coverage
what
regardless.
Keeps you there, mate, and stops you coming over here.
I know, it's brilliant.
Dragons
You get the
versus
best of
Sea
both
Eagles,
worlds.
mate. Dragons versus Sea Eagles. Let's move on before this turns into a cross-the-ditch war. Dragons versus Sea Eagles. Obviously, some big changes for the Sea Eagles. Steve Maddai out for a week, so Tom Simons moves into the centre position. Brett Stewart staying in the fullback position because he gets off with an early guilty plea for his striking charge. And Richie Faoso, 8 weeks out for dropping Greg Inglis on his head twice in the one match. There's a lot of people that want to shake Faoso's hand because I know there's a lot of Inglis haters out there who are quite happy to see Greg Inglis dropped on his head.
That's just wrong. You can't ever say that in a game of the league.
Hey,
I'm going to do the soapbox.
I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them. Look, I've seen a lot of comments on forums claiming that Greg Inglis dived and all that sort of stuff, and I've done everything I can to dispel that because, I mean, what professional rugby player would ever take a dive and put himself in a position where he could snap his spine? I mean, that's just ludicrous. But, yeah, anyway, moving on, shall we? Dragons, what's happening with them?
Shall. They've gone for a same 16-man team. They've named Cook in 17, Wayman 19, and Will Matthews, who actually played last week, in 21 for Cook.
Excellent. And, Michael Wayman at 19. So what do you reckon the chances are of him making into the 17?
He could be back this week. He could be rested again, so...
Yeah. Will that affect...
Toss-up one.
That'll affect Joe Stockwell and Dan Hunt, of course, but Damien Damien Cook to drop off the bench to make way for Wayman, you think?
You would think so, considering what they did last week with Matthews coming in for him.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And having a quick look at the Seagulls bench, we've got Peter Hiku, David Gower, Jamie Bureau, Jesse Seni-Lafeo, Essie Tonga and George Rose on a lovely extended bench. It seems to be a habit down there at Manly. It's kind of a case of we've got 6 players, pick 4.
They actually got 6. I think you'll probably see Gower, Brewer, Salini, Aifo play, and there'll be a toss-up between Hiku, Tonga, and Rose. You might even see Hiku or Tonga start at centre and had Simons come to the bench.
Yeah, look, it's a real sort of crapshoot, isn't it? Now, there's 2 players that we have glossed over we're meant to talk about. Lewis Brown and Tom Simons. A lot of players are talking about should we jump off them this week. Should we jump off them, Banksy?
Yes, you should.
I concur.
You should, because they're maxed out and they're both named in the centres this week. Brown played there last week. You got lucky with him scoring a try, making him score 29. I doubt he'll do that again in the centres. He's got a break even of 36. If you don't have to get rid of him this week, you can probably keep him another week and only lose the 10k you made last week. Simons, I believe he scored 23. He's got a break even of 26, but he only made 2k last week, so he's definitely topped out. You'd be looking to trade them out to better buy round options because both those players missed 12 and 15.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, for those of you who are sort of wondering, do we back up or put our money where our mouth is? Look, my trades this week were Simons out for Mark Minicello. I had 50 grand in the bank, so I was able to sort of pay the little bit extra. And then Brown out to Matt Bowen via Michael Gordon moving into the centres. So, we definitely back it up. Simons, I think he's maxed out, particularly moving to the centres. Even if he's coming off the bench, there's not points there. He's not going to be a member in my 17 coming off the bench with what I've seen from him. The same goes for Brown. So, the only sort of way for their price to go is down at the moment until they move back into starting second row forward positions. I've still got Humble there, which was sort of came into consideration. I looked at moving him out for Hodko, Trent Hodkinson. But look, at the end of the day, there's more money to be lost on Brown and Simmons than there is on Humble at the moment. So that was the main sort of thinking behind my decision to drop those 2 and leave Humble in for another week.
Humble has a break-even of 35 for those who are wondering.
Yeah, it's going to be a mess. Humble's going to drop 20 grand next week, but such is life.
Yep.
Alrighty, so Banksy, mate, you've got an issue that's been really grinding your gears. It's been getting under your skin this week. It's about time we brought back the soapbox. We haven't had a soapbox for a little while. Mate, I'll hand over to you. It has been a month, mate. What's getting under your skin? What's getting up your nose, Banksy?
Okay, most of us watched not the Dragon Seagulls game. We watched the Rabbitoh Seagulls game on last Friday night, and I only watched the second half, so I missed the first half. So I missed the Stewart incident. I missed the first Faosa incident, but I came in and saw the Mathai incident, and I saw the second Faosa incident. And what I thought when I heard that it was the second offence of Faosa, I was thinking, why the wasn't he sent off? Because he's already been put on report by the referees for the exact same move. Isn't being put on report warning enough? And if you do it again, shouldn't that warrant an early shower? And also, when it came to Matai, looking back at it now, yes, he probably did the right thing putting him on report because it probably didn't deserve anything else on the field. The penalty and the free substitution was enough. But you look at what Matai was doing with his arm. He only had intention to swing the arm and hit the arm across the chest of Sam Burgess anyway to take the wind out of him. He only ever had that intention, and it hit the ball, bounced up and knocked him on the head, and then Sam Burgess went in there and started throwing fists around like any good older brother does for his younger brother. I was very surprised that Sam Burgess was not sin bin for 10 minutes, but that's just because the refs are too scared to do anything. When anything happens nowadays, they just throw up the arms, they make that X, and they just let the judiciary deal with it. They do not deal with things on the field. They do not give the advantage to the team that is infringed upon. And that is something Sam Burgess brought up when they were disciplining Matt on the field. They did not get an advantage from it. they got a penalty. Yeah, that's a nice little bit advantage. But you're talking about you could lose a player for the entire game by a foul act, which has turned out to be correct at the end of the day. So why are the referees allowed to keep throwing up the arms and not penalised, not doing anything more on the field? Do referees have to bring back a 5-minute sin bin like they did in the olden days? Because maybe that's more warranted than a 10-minute one, because 10-minute one's pretty severe. And also, if you only ever see a player bin in 10 if he commits a foul on a try or prevents a try from being scored in a professional foul manner, and you only ever see a guy get sent off from the field if they ever strike the man in the head. Like, not even Faoso, not even Inu, not even Jeremy Smith got sent off for their lengthy suspension foul plays. They just got the arms thrown up on all three of them. And Faoso's done it with his second and third offence this game. He already did a shoulder tackle on Harrison, which he somehow got downgraded, so he only got a week instead of 4. So, there's more of a rant.
The reason on that downgrading for Faoso was a technicality. It was accidental head contact, and that's what knocked out Ash Harrison. It should have been a penalty for the shoulder charge, but they at the time the judiciary didn't have the rule written correctly to allow them to be charged as a result of accidental head contact or any sort of injury that occurred as a result of a shoulder charge. It was only ever allowed to be a shoulder charge, penalised. Now, interestingly, a memo went around to all of the clubs, and then this was brought up on radio by one of the blokes, one of the ex-players. I can't remember his name. He was on ABC Grandstand, and he was talking about this, and he was actually in the video ref's box for the Manly Rabbitohs game. And he said a memo went round to all the players from referee HQ stating that no player would be sent off for a shoulder charge. So that sort of explains why players haven't been sent off when we see these horrific shoulder charges and things like that. Personally, I think they need to change that. As for the spear tackle, I can't remember exactly what it was. Look, I agree with you. That was a second offence. He should absolutely have been sent off, for putting a player in a dangerous position like that. Sam Burgess made a very good call. And it was after the Maddai incident. Now, Maddai should never have been sent off. I personally don't believe Maddai should have been suspended, because it was accidental contact. The tackle was a legal tackle across the chest and the ball just got in the way. But with the second incident on Faoso, the point that Burgess made a little bit later on about Maddai was that they're not gaining any advantage. And this has been the big discussion, the big dilemma in football for, in the NRL for the last couple of years, particularly with concussions and things like that. They get the free interchange, that's great, but you lose a player. I mean, look at what happened to the Titans on the weekend. Now, none of that was really due to foul play. There was the Luke O'Dwyer incident where he broke his jaw. We could call it foul play. It was a shoulder charge with a half-hearted arm thrown around the back side of it, but Chalky was falling at the same time. He ended up copping a lower part of, like, the guy's elbow, which was tucked in to his chest for the shoulder charge motion, but he ended up copping that across the jaw. It broke his jaw. Now, yeah, that's bad. It wasn't even penalised. It wasn't even looked at. But you can't be sending players off for that sort of thing. Whereas with the Faoso incident, he's picked him up, he's dumped him on his head, and he's done it twice. Now, first time you go and report and it's penalised, yeah, fair enough. You do it a second time, then there's definitely something wrong with what's happening on the field. Not only that spear tackle, you could break somebody's spine doing that. You not just end their career, but potentially end their life, and put them in a wheelchair. Now, we've been very, very lucky that has not happened in a very long time, but it is an absolute serious risk. It's one of the reasons why you get penalised if you take the player past the horizontal. Faoso did it twice in the one game, and he stayed on the field. Now, there is a technicality that allows him to stay on the field, and means that refs cannot send him off at that point in time. That technicality needs to be looked at, and it needs to be fixed, so that the team that has the issue, the team that is getting disadvantaged by these dangerous tackles and by foul play, gains some advantage on the field, as well as that player gets hauled before the judiciary, because there's a lot of talk about turning rugby league into touch football and things like that. A spear tackle should not be part of our game. A shoulder charge, should not be part of our game because of the contact with the head and the risk of accidental head knocks and things like that. people can slam me as much as they like for making that call. But after watching it and seeing it happen firsthand, and you know, last year it would have been a legal shoulder charge from Richie Fayoso on Ash Harrison. It was accidental head contact as a result. It was a whiplash effect, and it knocked Harrow out cold. Now, Harrow is a Queensland Maroons player. He's been playing for Queensland for that many years, it's not funny. He's the toughest of the tough. He doesn't go down over nothing. And this knocked him out cold. You know, there's a lot wrong with that shoulder charge. There's a lot of risk with that shoulder charge, and it's really not needed. And the same goes for the spear tackle. You know, like Greg Inglis has been dropped on his head 3 times in as many matches?
Mm-hmm.
It's got to go. So, mate, I'm 100% with you this week on your soapbox, Banksy. Unfortunately, I'm as much as I've sort of explained a little bit of the counter or you know, the reasons why Fayoso stayed on the field and that sort of thing. Mate, I back your call. The 5-minute sin bin, mate, I think that's a brilliant idea. Bring it back, you know, and give the refs the power to use it. Not just for a professional foul or anything like that, you know, for foul play, for putting the player in a dangerous position. Make him sit out, you know.
And don't let them go to this, when they get sin bin, don't make them go to the changing rooms. Make them sit behind their own goal line with nobody allowed to talk to them. They have to sit there and watch the game until the ref says, yes, you may come back on the field.
Penalty box style ice hockey, mate.
Yep. Exactly that way.
I think that's an absolutely fantastic call. You know, full props, Banksy. 5-minute sin bin. And, I mean, it could work very much like you know, oh, God, I can't believe I'm going to suggest this in relation to the NRL, but like the yellow card in soccer. You know, you get 2 5-minute sin bins, you get 2 yellow cards, mate, you're out for the game. Done. No 10-minute sin bin. You are gone. That's it.
Well, if you get sin bin twice, you normally the second sin bin is gone for the game because you've already been binned once.
And then you keep the 10-minute sin bin for your professional foul.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, good call, Banksy. Good call. All right, mate, is there anything else you'd like to bring up before we close the show out tonight? Or today?
Not tonight.
Beautiful, mate. Well, once again, Banksy, thank you very much for being along with me and putting up with my never-ending jibes and terrible jokes. And it's always a pleasure to have you here, mate.
Just remember, revenge is coming.
Yeah, I'm starting to worry, mate. I was hoping you'd kind of forgotten about it, but obviously not. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, a much shorter podcast. We don't have anybody interesting to interview this week. We do hope to grab Alan Love's aunties, whoever that bloke is, and I'd love to get
Ross
here as well.
And Stats Williams.
For you. And Stats Williams. I think Stats Williams would be a fantastic interview to have. But short and sweet, hopefully, this week for you. And
it's an hour long, by the way.
And now I've got to beep out all of that swearing and everything, mate. I might just cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're beeping it out.
You're not. Right, the boss is
beeping is funnier.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for sticking with us, and we shall talk to you next time on the NRL Dream Team podcast. Last week was a shocker for everybody, so hopefully this week is a whole lot better. And that's